JavaScript Functions. When developing an application, you often need to perform the same action in many places. For example, you may want to show a message whenever an error occurs. To avoid repeating the same code all over places, you can use a function to wrap that code and reuse it. JavaScript provides many built-in functions such as parseInt and parsefloat. In this tutorial, you will learn how to develop custom functions. A function can accept 0, 1, or multiple parameters. In the case of multiple parameters, you need to use a comma to separate two parameters. The following declares a function sample that accepts no parameter. The following declares a function named square that accepts one parameter. The following declares a function named sample1 that accepts two parameters. Inside the function body, you can write the code to implement an action. For example, the following sample1 function simply shows a message to the console. In the body of the sample1 function, we call the console.log function to output a message to the console. To use a function, you need to call it. Calling a function is also known as invoking a function. To call a function, you use its name followed by arguments enclosing in parentheses like this. When calling a function, JavaScript executes the code inside the function body. For example, the following shows how to call the sample1 function. In this example, we call the sample1 function and pass a literal string, hello there, into it. The terms parameters and arguments are often used interchangeably. However, they're essentially different. When declaring a function, you specify the parameters. However, when calling a function, you pass the arguments that are corresponding to the parameters. For example, in the sample1 function, the message is the parameter and the hello there string is an argument that corresponds to the message parameter. Every function in JavaScript implicitly returns undefined unless you explicitly specify a return value. For example, to specify a return value for a function, you use the return statement followed by an expression or a value, like this. The following shows how to call the add function. The output is 30. The following example uses multiple return statements in a function to return different values based on conditions. The compare function compares two values. It returns -1 if the first argument is greater than the second one, 1 if the first argument is less than the second one, 0 if the first argument equals the second one. The function immediately stops executing immediately when it reaches the return statement. Therefore, you can use the return statement without a value to exit the function prematurely. Inside a function, you can access an object called arguments that represents the named arguments of the function. The arguments object behaves like an array, though it is not an instance of the array type. For example, you can use the square bracket to access the arguments. Arguments 0 returns the first argument, arguments 1 returns the second one, and so on. Also, you can use the length property of the arguments object to determine the number of arguments. The following example implements a generic add function that calculates the sum of any number of arguments. Hence, you can pass any number of arguments to the add function, like this. Again, the following example implements a generic add function that calculates the sum of any number of arguments. In JavaScript, you can use a function before declaring it. For example, this feature is called hoisting. Function hoisting is a mechanism which the JavaScript engine physically moves function declarations to the top of the code before executing them. The following shows the version of the code before the JavaScript engine executes it. Summary. Use the function keyword to declare a function. Use the function name to call a function. All functions implicitly return undefined if they don't explicitly return a value. Use the return statement to return a value from a function explicitly. The arguments variable is an array-like object inside a function, representing function arguments. The function hoisting allows you to call a function before declaring it.